Hello, Andrew Fidler, owner and broker of LaPlante Real Estate, coming to you today with a controversial topic: why I personally do not prefer apartments, multifamily properties, and especially why I don't prefer them in any of our single digit rental grade neighborhoods. Now, let me paraphrase for a second and characterize that I have nothing against apartments. In 2009, my very first purchase was a 6 unit. My second purchase after that was another 6 unit. I have had small multifamilies, less than 12 units, in my personal portfolio for the majority of my investing career. However, as the value of multifamily has increased, and as we've had more folks from bigger pockets, for example, that have read a little bit of literature and start the marketplace feeling that they want a multifamily property, the prices have gone up. I remember when it was less than $20,000 per unit, so $40,000, $50,000 for a duplex. They're now pushing $80,000 in the single-digit zip codes and $120,000 in the nicer zip codes, the double-digit zip codes here in Toledo. Now, to begin with, when you compare single-family properties to multifamily, I would say the very first thing you need to be able to do is compare apples to apples. Anytime you're using me as your agent, what we're going to be doing is looking at the net cash flow. We're attempting to look at the holding costs that are in a multifamily. Water, most common in Toledo, which includes water, sewer, trash. That is $80 to $120 a month per unit in overhead cost. Pretty big chunk right there. Then you have the mow and the snow to maintain the property, and that just kind of cuts at your base. Additionally, we have the reality. First of all, you're going to end up with an up-down duplex, incredibly common here in Toledo. The second floor property is not going to be as attractive. It's going to be harder for us to rent that property versus all your single family homes start on the ground. And then they own the second story. They own the second, they control the second story. They control the basement. So that is easier for them to move. Additionally, you're going to have one bedroom and two bedroom. Those are your commonality. I would absolutely be avoiding one bedroom apartments. Your renter base of who commonly rents these properties, you're looking for the elderly. You get folks that are kind of done, they're retired, they know what they want. They're an excellent choice for one bedroom apartments. The other end of that parabola is folks that are just leaving school. They're just starting their first job. Incredibly unstable from a resident base standpoint. However, they're going to be the folks who also end up in one bedrooms. Now, as those folks make more money and as they get attached to a significant other, they're going to be ready for a two bedroom. However, as soon as they have a child, as soon as their family starts growing, or as soon as they start making more money, they're going to be moving out and into a single family home where they control the yard, where they can control the basement. So I would drive that into a discussion from the standpoint. In high school, I took German, and then I did two student exchanges in Germany. That culture is based on mutual respect and politeness, and they don't want to be rude to each other. I would observe that the United States, from the majority, we don't live in apartments. We don't think about playing our music carefully. We don't think about not making noise after hours. So it's reasonably common in the city of Toledo, to have residents complain about new apartment dwellers and then having to educate them on how to be successful with that. Additionally, I would go into the Section 8 voucher program. Section 8 owns and operates their own apartment complexes here in Toledo. So you will be in direct competition with them to be able to qualify and solicit vouchers. Additionally, the single family homes are exclusively landlord based. And then you also have your basis of need. Typically, you have a single mother, and then the single mother has a child. That's kind of their basis for dependence. Well, you're immediately into a two bedroom. So all your one bedrooms are completely out. And then as soon as they have, we are allowed 2 heartbeats per room. So you can have 2 girls in one room. But if you have a boy and a girl, now you have a 3-bedroom voucher. So that family is headed into one of my single family homes. And then they want to plant their roots and be proud of the property. That brings me to the additional concept that when we are surfing Facebook, You are not going to find your apartment, unless it's unique and special, gorgeous hardwood floors, perhaps in a historical district. You're not going to find that apartment being bragged about on Facebook. The houses is where we would end up seeing, hey, look at my new casa, come on over, we're gonna do some barbecuing, I'm gonna put a couch down in the basement, we can watch movies. Like, that's the you made it threshold inside of the city of Toledo. So I find that it really helps with stability, it helps with the holding costs, and so the single family homes I've found are a better investment for the long term, especially when we go with Section 8. Over 50% of my personal portfolio is Section 8. It's a double-edged sword. There's a whole nother video set on complying with Section 8 and being in bed with the government. However, the money does spend and the residents are truly great. I don't have any real statistical opinion on residents that are on Section 8 are worse and we're harder on a property in any way, shape, or form. If anything, they're also in bed with the government. They need to make sure their voucher stays good. Lastly, I want to wrap up that concept of your single-digit zip codes. The residents, they're going to be staying in apartments, especially in the single-digit zip codes, because that's where they can afford, are going to suffer from instability. They are more likely to have a car failure, to lose their job, or to have their co-signer, their significant other who's on the lease, break up with them and leave the property. Of course, this happens in any zip code. I'm simply saying that my observation has been in the lower end zip codes, it happens more frequently. So the turnover in those properties is more frequent. And one of my major mantras inside of the success of real estate investment is, I would argue, and I can statistically show you, we can rent your property for 30% less. And if I can keep it occupied by the same resident for 5 years, you will make more than turning the property over every other year, renting it for that 110% rent rate, and then having to do renovation in between those turnovers, and then have vacancy 30 days, 60 days. So ultimately, stability is the value play inside of real estate. I do not find that apartments provide that. That's why single family homes in the city of Toledo, especially 3 bedrooms with a basement, a gas-forced furnace, not boiler heat, gas-forced heat, fenced-in yard, detached garage. That is the bankable investment in the city of Toledo. And as you call me and want to know what I'm excited that's on the market today and what you may want to invest in, you will commonly find that that is what I'm comparing to. That's not to say that we will not find opportunity in the multifamily arena. I've simply been observing, going on 4 or 5 years post-COVID, that we are not finding great deals. People who have multifamilies that are selling want a premium, and then the rent rates are not overly competitive, especially when we recognize that there's a lot of competition. You have a lot of, I'm going to say, large commercial multifamily, 20 unit, 40 unit, larger, 100 unit. And so what they're doing is they have a manager on site, and their responsibility is to try to fill those doors. They're in direct competition for you or for your multifamily, and they're willing to drop their prices. They're willing to waive a month's rent. They're willing to have a welcome benefit of any form. So I find that the single family houses are a better, long-term, more stable investment. And that's my opinion. Enjoy, and we appreciate you investing here in our city of Toledo, Ohio, and your trust in LaPlante Real Estate. Thank you.